You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast, brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Business owners, earth lovers, and sustainability activists. With us today is a very special guest. She is the 2020 Miss Earth winner, and she is the head of community engagement and impact awareness at Eco Branders. This is a company launched in 2007. Eco Branders was one of the first companies in the US to bring a comprehensive line of sustainable and customizable promotional products to the eco-conscious marketing community. Over the years, the company has become one of the country's top online retailers, offering eco-friendly and custom branded merchandise while simultaneously acting to reduce its own carbon footprint, rebuild forests around the world, and keep plastic out of our oceans. Lindsey Coffey, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you, Chris. I am so happy to be here. I'm doing really well. It's a beautiful spring day, so the weather is getting a little less bipolar now. Very happy about that. But yeah, I'm great. How are you today? I'm so happy to be here talking to you. So I'm very excited for a conversation.
Thank you so much. We had a really great conversation in the pre recording room leading up to this, talking more about your journey and what actually led you into what you're doing today. So it goes from being a YouTuber, but not quite a YouTuber, from being a model, Miss Earth, and now working for Eco Branders. Tell us more about your journey and what you were doing and how that led you into what you're doing today.
Yeah, so definitely had an unconventional way of doing things, especially in terms of how I engaged with my activism. And I always said I was an environmentalist even before I knew what the term meant. I grew up in the country. Literally, my next door neighbors were cows. I'm not being mean, they were literal cows. And I would just spend time outdoors with nature, with animals. I was in love. And so I even adopted a highway when I was in middle school, and I would clean up trash on the weekends where other kids would just kind of be at the pool. I don't know. I thought it was fun to pick up litter. So I always loved the environment. I always wanted to take steps in order to treat her with care. And as I grew, that love for nature grew with me, but in different ways and how I was able to interact with her. And so modeling, fortunately, gave me so many gifts. And one of them was the ability to travel. And I traveled the world and I saw so much more beauty on this earth. And I connected with other communities and cultures. And within this beauty, unfortunately, I also saw a lot of devastation. And even if it weren't traveling for work, it sparked my desire to travel even personally, individually on my own. And so I really came across a lot of different cultures and communities that were suffering due to a lot of negative environmental impacts. And I saw a lot of destruction. And I've even personally lived through my own natural disasters. And it got to a point where I knew that there needed to be more done and we needed to see more active voices in the community. And I felt that I had to be part of that voice. And I suffered with a lot of self doubt and a lack of confidence because I thought, okay, who's going to listen to respect a model from a town no one's ever heard of, no degree in environmentalism. I had a degree in political science, not even close to the environment. And I mean, again, I was a model. There's stereotypes that go along with that. So I just felt very under qualified. So fortunately, as you mentioned, I came across this one competition called Miss Earth, and it was an environmental competition. And it was an extensive process where, again, carried a lot of doubt with me. But in the end, I ended up becoming the first American to win the international title of Miss Earth, where I competed against 83 different nations. And showing the world that I knew what I was talking about ended up convincing me I knew what I was talking about. And it gave me that confidence to really hone in on my passion because our passion will always be more powerful than our doubt, and education occurs inside and outside of the classroom. So as long as you have that passion, you have that dedication and that resilience, you're capable of so much more than you think. And of course, I had to take an unconventional route to get there. But the point is, I'm here and I'm happy and I'm very grateful to be doing what I'm doing. So that's a long winded story of how I got to where I am to this day. And I work with other organizations as well, such as Eco Branders, and I advocate really to transform a new consumer culture. And we're revolutionizing the business and marketing sectors by becoming a leading example in sustainability. And we're encouraging others to follow suit.
I love that. And it really is an amazing story and journey to hear about the self doubt, overcoming all the obstacles and the stereotypes of we're not good enough. I don't know enough to make an impact. But I can tell that you're incredibly passionate about the subject. And I think at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Are you passionate enough to see a vision through, to see this dream through, and to follow along in your journey? It's just incredible to hear about it. And we appreciate all the impact that you're having, even for us to feel like, oh, I'm just one person or I've only impacted a few people. That's still way more many people than others are willing to put into a passion project or to see a dream through. Now, eco branders is revolutionizing the business and marketing sectors here. There's a growing trend among companies to integrate sustainability, and we're not always sure if their intentions are always aligned with the earth or sustainability practices. Are they doing it because they want clout and more customers, or are they actually having a true impact? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I do have a lot of thoughts on that. And now there's also two different avenues to run down. I mean, of course, heard the term greenwashing, I'm sure, where they have a product and they literally slap a leaf on it and they call it green and like sustainable, but it actually has no sustainability associated with it whatsoever. That's also a little different where they're not practicing what they preach really in any regard, or sometimes they are doing what they can, but they're really pushing sustainability and green initiatives to even kind of hide the fact of things that they're doing behind the curtain that they don't really want you to acknowledge or address. And so I've seen that a lot whenever somebody really wants to promote one aspect that they're doing really well, but then they're also doing like 10 other things that are actually very destructive. And then, though, there's also some people that they reluctantly are incorporating these initiatives into their practices only maybe to produce more profit because we can even get into this later where it is a theory, but those focusing on ESG strategies are predicted to outperform those who are not in the long term. So maybe possibly they're integrating these sustainable business practices just for, yeah, maybe the clout or the hype or to attract new customers and to focus on a niche very strategically, but then they don't care about it at all. And now to even those ones, I say, I don't care if you don't care about it. As long as you're doing some good in the world, you're making a positive impact. I mean, you don't really have to support and get behind it if you're not a nature lover, but your actions are at least doing something beneficial and they're helping communities and they're helping ecosystems. So those are the ones I can at least respect because they're putting something at least before themselves and to a greater capacity to benefit someone. But it's the ones that are greenwashing or the ones that are using maybe one really kind of more sustainable practice to overshadow a lot of the things that they aren't. Those are the kind of companies that I have an issue with because they're causing a lot more harm. And it's people like that and companies like that that you really have to be mindful about because it opens up just a very destructive culture where we're not really learning from our actions. And a lot of people can get away with things where that's not really how things should be today.
I appreciate that perspective and thank you for addressing the elephant in the room because at the end of the day, we are looking for sustainability, something that can be long term practices. But when they're chasing just the clout, as long as they're having impact at the end of the day, I feel like that's what really matters. They will maybe get fined for environmental impacts in the tune of 50 million, and then they'll spend $1 million on an ad campaign to tell you how great they are. Or they're fixing their image and things like that. But I think as long as they're having impact, as you mentioned, that's where it's at. And even if we have to wave profits in front of their face and say, "Hey, looky here, come get it," the sustainability should follow as long as it's producing some positive results.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm all in support of even if you just want to make money and put that money in your pocket, investing in a lot of sustainable businesses or up and coming sustainable startups or even green tech, it's subjected to be very good performance where it is a good investment. Even if your goal is literally only to make money, but you're still investing in something that's going to have such a positive outcome, I support that. Like, I don't have to convert you into an environmentalist as long as you just are leaving that positive impact, your intention. We don't even have to talk about it. As long as your actions reflect positive change, you don't have to mentally support it. But again, it's those that are kind of projecting to be someone they're not, and their actions aren't actually supporting as what they do claim to be, or they're using only one of them to cover up 10 other ones that are destructive. Those are the ones that I'm like, okay, we need to step aside and have a conversation.
It's very important and very well said, and I appreciate that perspective. And whether it's the profits or new market share or potentially just regulations that are coming down the line that are impacting their business decisions. Recently, the EU banned environmental claims without evidence. And what is this going to look like for the US and Does the EU have this right, or are they absolutely wrong here?
I believe the EU, I'm fully in support of their decision. And it was a directive that they added in order to limit greenwashing and to protect the consumers from misleading wording. And it's also really focusing on carbon offsets and how a lot of companies only focus on carbon offsetting, which we can also get more into that as well, because I'm still in support of carbon offsetting. But what this directive is saying specifically is there are a lot of companies out there that will showcase themselves as sustainable, climate neutral, green, environmentally friendly, but really their product is not at all. It's only because they're investing in carbon offsets. So they're claiming carbon neutrality when really it actually has nothing to do with their business and their business model. It's just they're investing some funds to offset their carbon footprints. And what I will say, we do live in a world where fortunately we have so many choices and options where green solutions are flexible to introduce them into the business model that we run and how we want to run it in the future. Even within our own personal lives, there's just so many options that we have that we can use that suits us and our lifestyle the best. And that can be translated into what suits our company the best and how we want to run our company. So, since we have so many different options, one of them, though, is carbon offsetting. And that is the bare minimum I at least ask because it is so simple. Because there are so many reasons why we are slowly progressing towards sustainability because it's a change in business processes, mindsets, infrastructure, technology. It is very complicated. I acknowledge that and I understand that. But carbon offsetting is the one thing that is so easy to do because you literally don't have to change your business model at all. Not one thing. All you have to do is invest some of those profits into an offsetting program where you are reducing the overall carbon footprint that kind of just like evens out yours. So you're literally not doing a thing except that. And so this directive, it really talks about how if you don't have the evidence to back up these environmental claims, then you cannot use this jargon. You cannot use this terminology. And so I do support that because that is what is creating this culture of just negligence and unawareness and unconsciousness in a way. So a lot of responsibility is reflected on the consumer. And it's an unfair responsibility where they have to do so much research to find out if a company is actually green or greenwashing them. And it's unfair. And so that's why also we need to incorporate so many more EPR programs, which stands for extended producer responsibility programs, into businesses, into their business model, so they can be held responsible for the consequences that they create instead of relying it on the consumer. With this bill and this initiative, I think it's going to be completely influential. And I do see the US being able to incorporate more of that into their regulations and into their policies. And we've already seen it now where a lot of people are focusing on trying to hold the companies accountable through EPR programs, through CSRs, and just ESG strategies in general. But I completely believe in reducing the amount of greenwashing that is out there and just creating a new tone for consumer culture and what to expect from the businesses that we purchase from. And it relies on being able to show evidence to use those terms and avoiding using carbon offsets as the only green mechanism you use to say that you're sustainable.
I love that. I think you bring up some very important points here. It's the carbon offsetting that is kind of the focus, and it almost seems to be the smoke and mirrors. And in actuality, there's more sustainable things and other things we should be worrying about. With that being said, the data and the science and having facts to back things up is really important. Again, with the smoke and mirrors, I feel like plastic straws usually get a bad rap, and there's a big push for that. But then if we look at the actual polluters of the ocean, the majority of the plastic, I believe, are fishing nets. Is that correct? I think it was like 70%, or are those facts misleading?
That's so funny you mentioned that because I can't confirm if it's 70%, but I do know it's a very high percentage because I was just looking at this oddly enough the other day. There's this company called Econol, and they're absolutely amazing. Have you ever heard of them? Econol, like
No,
that?
I'm not familiar. Please tell me more.
So what they do is they actually focus a lot on ocean pollution, and majority of the pollution that they pick up is fishing nets. And they take these fishing nets and they transform them into nylon string, and they are basically a supplier to, oh my goodness, hundreds of just designers and manufacturers that are needing this fabric. And it's just nylon fabric that was created out of all of this pollution and fishing nets that they got from the ocean. And they're completely a sustainable, mindful company. Econol is owned by a different company that goes by a larger name, and this is just one of the branches of that company. The overall company is just wildly successful in profits. But even just to break it from just Econol, I don't even remember if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's either Econol or Econol. And I believe their annual revenue was around maybe 350 million a year just off of being able to transform fishing nets into nylon yarn and supply them to those that are in need of fabric on a mass scale. And it's just goes to show that they are wildly successful and they're able to do something that creates such a massive impact on our planet and being able to transform just the fabric and garment industry just coming from a fishing net out of the ocean. It's remarkable.
That is absolutely incredible. And I think it just shows that there's actual profitability in sustainability. Like there's a business model. So if profits first are a lot of the company's intentions, there's profit to be made in sustainability. And if that's the one motivator they need to make meaningful impact, gosh, just please go for it. Please do it.
Absolutely. And it's funny because, especially with businesses now, we always have that argument of sustainability versus profitability, and we can have both. And so it's just a matter of being aware of our choices and really educating ourselves on the topic to know which kind of avenue that we want to really go down. And even just what EcoBranders does, we always encourage brands to incorporate, reduce, reuse, recycle into their programs, buying less products, but better ones. And if the products are for promotional purposes, you only give them to those who truly want it. And that ends up saving you money because you don't have to push out too many products that kind of go to waste and just end up in a landfill. And then when it comes to reusing, you design for reusability. In terms of recycling, you buy products from recycled materials or you make them into recyclable materials. You offer take back programs, you donate your materials and just excess or unusable merchandise. In all of these, you have to weigh the cost and benefits scenarios of it, but there is so much cost benefits to doing these just practical, sustainable practices because it really is going to save you money in the long term. And even just going back to the products that you have, where so many people, even in marketing, like they just think, okay, I'm just going to push out as many products as I can because the goal is to get them in as many hands as possible. Well, no, this is whenever you have to bring strategy into your business practice because a lot of those people that don't care for it are just going to throw it away immediately. And so if you actually think about your focus, think about the audience that you want and how it's actually going to be able to push your business in the direction that you want to go to, which is probably more revenue. It's being able to produce less products and better ones to give to those who are truly going to utilize it, where you're actually saving money by not producing a mass amount and your buck's going to go further because it's getting to the hands of customers that are going to create brand loyalty for you. And they're also going to be able to increase your brand's reputation from like word of mouth, just conversations. Because if it's a product that is meant for them and they utilize it and it was strategically thought out, then they're going to be able to have a greater reach than somebody maybe finding it as they look down into an empty trash can and see it. I mean, no one's going to want to remember that company because somebody obviously threw that away. So I'm not going to look any further into like whatever that was. So you're really hurting yourself in terms of business practice when you're not thinking a sustainable mindset because you're throwing money away, not focusing on one area that could be beneficial to you because you're just thinking in the wrong, you're using the wrong strategy.
Absolutely. I love the strategic mindset behind that because if you think of the supply and demand curve, that's important for businesses to follow. But if there's additional revenue or market share or sustainability while still having very similar profit margins, this is a no-brainer for them. And I love that you put data and science behind these decisions. It's not like a you should do it because you feel good. Well, obviously that message doesn't resonate with these companies. You're talking about profitability, you're talking saving resources, and they're like, oh, these are the things I like to hear. So this message, I hope, is resonating with them.
And there's even so many more things, even in the long term, that you can think about where if you are implementing like proper waste disposal practices, you're having energy efficient manufacturing, you're optimizing your resource consumption. All of that saves you money while also mitigating a lot of environmental risks that could occur that you have to clean up in the future. And that's also more money out of your pocket instead of just doing the right things up front strategically and mindfully, where you could be making so much more money and then saving so much more money.
That is fantastic. Have there been any really important, like YouTubers, podcasts, books, or any sort of educational resource that was really influential to you that you might recommend to others who are either interested in learning more or how they could be more impactful in their day to day lives?
A lot of the things that I really take to heart and learn by are a lot of the organizations that I work with as well, which is World Wildlife Funds. They're just great for overall global conservation. And then Remake is a company or an organization focused on sustainability within the fashion industry, as well as humanitarian efforts to ensure worker rights for our garment workers and like living wages. And there's also the Climate Reality Leadership Corps, which was an outstanding just training program that I went through, and you learn so much about every part of the environment. It is a lot, but they keep it interesting and it's very eye-opening just to realize how much you don't know. And this is the fundamental building blocks to life. Essentially, it's something very important that we should all really know about and be able to incorporate these things in our daily life because I feel we've gotten so far off track and so disconnected with nature. And that's how society has deemed us. But also, who's created that? It's us. And so we have the ability and the power to be able to influence that change to redirect us into a new direction. Even going back to supply and demand, where even from a consumer side, so many people are so despondent on what to do because they think that, okay, we need to just put all of these regulations and all of this pressure on the companies that are the ones creating these negative impacts, which I do agree with. But I think they're forgetting about supply and demand because consumers control market trends through supply and demand. And if companies are starting to only produce environmentally friendly products, they're limiting their resource consumption, just making it overall more green. Okay, say that there's a product or a service, anything that somebody demands that's not green, and that company no longer makes it. Okay, well, another company is going to pop up tomorrow just to fulfill that demand if it's still there. So, what we have to really go and focus on is, of course, both parts, but I need to emphasize how much power and influence consumers have on the individual level because they are the ones that are literally, as I said, controlling the market trends. So, if they're not demanding it, then they're not going to be creating it. And so that's where the disconnect comes in a lot from on the individual scale of consumers to like mass production industry.
That is so incredibly important, and something that made me think of a situation where it was the World War II era, where the flour sacks, they found that consumers were actually reusing those in order to make garments for themselves. So the companies began to create more colorful, vibrant patterns on their flour sacks in order for them to be reused. And that was actually an interesting sustainability story because now these companies are encouraged to create better patterns so that the end result, it gets reused and is more likely to be made and reused into a garment. So I feel like that should be a company's focus as well. Have you ever heard that story from World War II?
No, I actually have not, but I'm very glad that you shared that with me. That just goes to show there are so many moments in history like that where we've had that happen. And being sustainable, it's not end all for businesses as some think. And by doing that, you are attracting a niche market, you are attracting new customers, you are building your reputation where so many people now are so concerned with authenticity and transparency. And we are kind of living in a culture where it's gotten to the point it's respected to have purpose, which is beautiful. And it's so beautiful to see that reflected in companies and businesses. Even just like little stories like that as well. I feel like a lot of us forget about those moments where there's just so much more that we can do and it offers us opportunities to be creative, to be innovative, to just reach into a new market or maybe even create it and take off in that sense. So just the opportunity for innovation and even to be the first in something, it's a beautiful thing. And it shouldn't be looked at as scary or something that I don't want to go there and mess with, stick to what I know. That's not how we evolve as a species, how we evolve as society. That's not how we make things better. So being with that open mindset and utilizing those stories people have like a gold mine that they're sitting on where they can just take this creativity and run with it. And so that's what I really want to see more of.
I love that. Lindsay, you've gotten me so excited about sustainability. When we were talking earlier, I was like, I'm not like a big tree hugger and like I'm not like out there as an activist, but like I'm not out there actively trying to hurt the world. You've got me excited about the prospective niche markets and opportunities that could be there. And I feel and hope that other businesses are listening and hearing this as well and realizing, oh, wow, this is something that I should live in my day to day life. This is something I should put into my business practices. Are there any resources for either business owners or consumers that have kind of done the research for us? Is there like a top 100 businesses we should support or businesses we shouldn't support? I feel like I've seen some out there, but maybe not focused on sustainability. Does anything exist to your knowledge?
Yes, there was also something I wanted to backtrack with what you said. Even just focusing on like niche markets being different, being fun. Even at EcoBranders, we have in our search bar, you can literally search by impact that you want to create. You can search by material, whether that be bamboo, organic, hemp, compostable. But even just going back to the impact, if you are an ocean lover, we have products that you can purchase that support ocean cleanups. If you love animals, we have products you can purchase that support biodiversity. So it's really cool to even have a tool on your website that allows you to literally search by the impact that you want to make, which I just feel is rare and it should be implemented on more websites. It's useful, it's unique, and it just allows you to celebrate purpose within your business and on the consumer side, because the consumer is like, okay, I'm doing something good now, which also encourages them to want to buy more because it's for a good cause. I mean, how many times have I seen a bag? I don't need any more bags, but I saw a bag and I said, oh my God, that's so cute. And I ended up finding out it was made of hemp and it was made by women of Nepal, and all the proceeds went back to the women who made them. And I'm like, okay, well, I really don't need a new bag, but if it's for a good cause, might as well buy it. So it really does have a psychological play on your consumer as well. I didn't even mean to share that story, so I got off track with what else I was going to say. But in terms of innovation, there's so many alternative uses of even leather where people are creating leather out of coffee grounds and banana peels and pineapple. And I'm like, how do you even do that? It's very interesting. It's very engaging for the customer. And again, it's a statement piece almost where a customer is going to be like, oh my goodness, do you like my bag? It's made out of pineapples. You know, it's so interesting and unique. But in terms of what a consumer can do and where they can look to help them, because again, there's so much research that falls. I always like to refer to goodonyou.eco, and the remake directory at remake.world. Now, these are two sources that you can actually type in a brand, some of your favorite brands even, and they have ranked how green they are essentially and how good they are for the environment, how bad they are, what makes them that way specifically. So it is a very educational tool. And the sustainabilityindex.com is also one of them. It also allows businesses to see too. I even feel their competitors. What are they doing? How are they ranked? What can I do in my own business model to shift it to gear to kind of what they're doing? And it's a great tool really for both business and consumer just to see what is out there, even just from another business mindset perspective, seeing how people are reacting to those types of businesses as well. So you can strategically move forward and how you want your business to be represented and how it's depicted by the consumers, which is very, very important. So that is how you build that brand loyalty, build your brand reputation, and just overall build your empire. So I think those are great tools for both parties.
I think that's so cool. That wasn't even a lead in from like my question sheet. I just thought, I was like, is there a way we can find this? And you're like, oh, yeah, all this exists.
Absolutely.
Here it is. And it's so cool. They can find it at Eco Branders and a few of the other websites. We're going to have links available down in the description so people can access that and have more impact and make changes to their daily lifestyle that can be more impactful. Now, where can people find out more about you and Eco Branders? It looks like you may be on Instagram. You have a personal website as well. Can you tell us more about those?
Yes. Also, even speaking about personal individual behavior modifications you can make within your own life, I also have a list on my website as well, which is lindsey-coffey.com. And Lindsey is Lindsey and coffee, Coffey, as we had that conversation. Like the drink, but spelled different. So I have a little list of what you can incorporate, just small scale behavior modifications, as I mentioned. And then there's also a link to how you can even volunteer in your hometown. There's also mission trips that you can become acquainted with, which I think are so fun. If you have the means to, you can even take a few days or a week long to go travel to somewhere exotic or somewhere that's just a few miles outside your backyard to be able to make a conservation impact within your communal ecosystems in your area or abroad. So there's so many ways to just get involved. And it could be really anything that's suitable to your interests. It's not just one thing that you have to do, even things that you incorporate in your own life. It's not a one size fits all. There's so many different options that you can just incorporate, same as businesses as well. So, yes, you can find a lot of resources on my website, my social handles. You can find me on social media. It's typically Lindsey Marie Coffee, and that's just across the board, mainly on my social handles. And EcoBrander's website, ecobranders.com, where we also have an education and awareness tab where you can even just learn more about the environment, learn more about how to even go green as a business. We have this one series called Green Growth, which is essentially directed to businesses, but also consumers. And it shares strategic ways to approach sustainability and incorporate it within your own business or within your own life, depending on if you're a consumer. So we have a ton of resources for you to check out, tons of ways for you to contact me if you have any questions. And I'm always open to being able to answer any questions anyone has because I'm always in support of sustainability and anyone who wants to just incorporate that a little bit more.
I love that. And thank you for sharing all those resources. It's not for a lack of education. People just don't know it exists yet, or they're not excited about sustainability. But these resources and educational tools exist so that we can make better purchase decisions. We can volunteer in ways that can be more impactful to our community. It's so important. Now, we only have a few minutes left, but I wanted to ask you what is on the itinerary, the agenda, the goals for 2024 and beyond, either for yourself personally or for eco-branders? What is coming up that you're excited about?
Oh, goodness. But I have to even backtrack again. I love what you said because I actually say this all the time too. Really, the lack of action I personally feel isn't based on not caring, it's just based on a lack of knowledge. And so being able to focus on outreach and education, which is one of the things that I continue to do in 2024 that I am looking forward to, is to continue educating consumers, educating businesses, just educating everyone in so many types of existence as as that consumer, as a CEO, as a constituent, even just as an overall citizen of this earth, things that we can do and incorporate within our own life, how we can transform culture, how we can revolutionize industries, all for the better and to create a healthier and greener future for everyone involved. And showing that there are so many ways to think outside the box. There are so many ways to have profitability and sustainability. There are so many ways to become a business that is purposeful. And it's just a limited mindset and limited beliefs that keep us from getting there. And the fact that we don't utilize the gift that we were all given, which is the ability to choose. So, our gift of choice really has a lot of power and influence within us as long as we are educated about what we are making a choice of. And it's the one gift that we have where no matter your situation, no matter your economic status or your socioeconomic status, no matter your background, your education, not everyone was born with privilege, but everyone was born with choice. If we can utilize the choice and the voice that we have, we can go so far in life and we can take everyone in our communities with us. And it's just being able to have that mindset. And so that's what I want to carry further into 2024 is being able to emphasize our ability to choose and be able to have the confidence to understand the power and the influence behind our voice, whether it's individual or collective. And I want to see that on consumer sides. I want to see that on business sides. I just want to see that as a human being.
Lindsay, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey, your story with us, and getting us all amped up about sustainability. This is so cool. And I can't wait to share this with people and get the message out there as you're doing. Keep up the great effort, the great work that you're doing. I know there was self doubt in the beginning, and we're going to experience that throughout our entire life. But just know you're having a great impact on society. You're doing a lot of great work, and just keep up everything that you're doing. It is such a fantastic conversation and purpose. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Chris. And thank you so much for having this conversation. And my compliments to you as well for giving yourself and your guests a platform to be able to speak on such topics and to have that reach to even reach people that maybe are even in their typical circles. So it's all about being able to come together, support one another, and continuously moving forward. So thank you so, so much. And I enjoyed our conversation.
You're welcome. Same here. And that's what it's all about, supporting one another, trying to lift each other up, get to the next level.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't say it better.
Thanks so much. Everyone will have links available down in the description and show notes. Make sure you reach out to Lindsey Coffey and their company, Eco Branders, so you can get started on your path to a better tomorrow. Thank you so much.